And this week we're talking all about the issue of fixing people, saving them, people trying to help people too much, and is it possible
No.
is it possible to care too much for someone you love? We've had some great questions off our Facebook group community members, and we've had some fantastic client emails as well. So we've picked two people out tonight. Is some case study examples that we want to talk through. But I wanted to begin with, it's one of your little quotes that we put on Facebook, which was, we did it a while ago and it was really popular. And it's this idea of our job is not being to save people, but to support them while they save themselves. And that's the big kind of energetic shift that we want to include in tonight's Walk the Wu Wei teaching. So,
well, it is important because you're talking about energy. When you put your intention on something, remember the phrase Yi Dao Qi Dao? So Yi is your intention. So what you're thinking creates the intention, and the Qi follows that intention.
Yeah. The examples we're going to talk through this evening are very good in terms of contrasting examples. So first off, we've got our community member, Dan, who really started the ball rolling on this discussion. Dan describes himself as a recovering fixer, which
Hi,
is
Dan.
great.
Come and fix me.
Yeah, and he said really from ever since his childhood, he's tried to make things right for other people. At the moment, Dan has, he said he's got 3 members of his family who are kind of suffering in one way or another, and he really has this urge to kind of make things right for them, and the very fact that he can't gives him a great, pain. He gives him the red light feelings. He kind of uses the word despair in that he can't help them. He feels inadequate in that he can't help them.
You feel, what do you say?
Well, no,
these are
the kind of words that he's using to describe the discomfort, the red light feelings. And I guess he has a sense of powerlessness as well. He said that he hasn't got the power to solve the problem. So Dan's question is, how can he feel okay? I guess, how can he feel green light feelings about the situation, about the fact that the realization that he can't fix the pain of his loved ones, that his members of family. So that's Dan's situation, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
So think about that for a moment. So I believe this is about acceptance. So have a think while you explain the other one.
Okay, yeah, definitely about acceptance, massive teaching. And Angie is our other case study, who Angie's kindly written to us. We know Angie, we've worked with her for a while, and Angie describes herself, if Dan is a recovering fixer, Angie describes herself as a natural motherer and carer. She loves mothering and caring for people, but she believes that caring too much has got her into difficulties. So again, this raises the question, is it possible to care too much? Can we care too much? Angie's situation is that she's been in a series of relationships with men who've had problems, so gambling, taking drugs, alcohol. She really loves the men, or she loved the men at the time she met them, and she saw some good qualities in them, she said, but each time the relationship turns into a project for her. And she finds that she kind of sees it as her responsibility to fix them and to save them. And she's obviously doing a very good job, because she says, and we know that Angie does kind of save them to an extent, but that they get better, whether it's in the short term or long term. And then they leave Angie, so she's kind of left.
So is she doing a good job?
Well, this is what we need to talk about. And so Angie's question, if you like, is how does she break the cycle? This cycle, she understands now that she's in this cycle. It's not a healthy, it's not an authentic cycle. How does she break this cycle of fixing and saving people? So I guess to move away from that, but also she wants to be authentically loving and caring and nurturing because she does believe, and we know, Angie, that these are some of her greatest strengths and qualities. So how does she get that balance right? So two really good contrasting examples, but both hooking into and touching upon this issue of fixing and saving other people, and how do we care, how do we love, and get the Wu Wei balance in the situation. So David, where would you like to start with this?
Well, I'd like to start with the teaching that underlines this, and it's the Taoist teaching of Qiang, self-nurturing or self-nourishing. And really on both of these, you have to step back and think about why are they trying to help and to cure other people? Why are they putting their attention onto them? Mm-hmm. Because I would ask them to put their attentions onto themselves. What's that saying about first heal thyself? I forget the saying now, but it's about the flow of energy, and the flow of energy has to first come through you and then go out to whoever it is. So instead of going around and trying to save other people or think you know what's right for them, which I'm sorry to use this word, but it's a little bit arrogant really to think that you know better than what they know, because have they asked you to save them? Do they want you to save them? Is your way of looking at it the right way for them? So I think it starts with both of these. Is first think about saving yourself. First think about what it is that you need. First think about nurturing and caring for you. And then when you get that right, then the energy will flow through you and out. Because we haven't got energy saddlebags. We don't hold on to the energy. When we love ourselves, the energy has to flow through us and out. And here's where you get the first big misunderstanding. Most people think it's very laudable, very good to care and to look after other people. But they think it's selfish to care and look after themselves. And I would say it's the other way around. First of all, you have to look after yourself so you can look after other people. And then one of the things, I'm sure you'll pick up the actual points, is before you're going to out and help somebody, make sure they do want you to help them. You may not be the person that they want to help. They may not want to be saved at that moment. So make sure that you've got permission before you go stepping in and trying to save them. And so it's what I said at the beginning. Think about the question. Is it acceptance that we have to accept that other people are on their journeys, and their journeys might not be what we think is the right journey?
Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, before you can, I guess, authentically assess what is your appropriate role in this situation, whether it's with your partner or a family member.
Or a friend.
You have to, I guess what you're saying, David, as part of this kind of Chang self-love process, is you have to start with yourself first. And a lot of people, like Dan describes, starts off with a feeling of pain or discomfort by virtue of the fact they're watching or observing or hearing about a family member or a friend or someone they know who are suffering. And so that then creates red light feelings for in Dan's case, for Dan. We know slightly less about Angie's situation in terms of her pain and discomfort or what her driver is. But one of Dan's drivers is, how do I get rid of this red light feeling that I'm getting by just kind of being here and witnessing other people suffering. So how would Dan...
Well, first of all, it goes back to the basic Wu Wei teaching, is that you are the creator of your feelings. So you must remember that. So if your experience of red light, whatever you want to call it, I think Dan called it inadequacy or whatever, don't give it those emotive labels because they mislead you. Just call it a red light feeling, a strong feeling. And then ask yourself, first of all, why am I creating that? What is my belief that is creating that? So what we can kind of grasp from what Dan is saying, Dan thinks he can go around and save people. Dan, you're going to fail. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. Because as I said earlier, that person may not want to be saved because we only learn by making mistakes. And although it's difficult to see someone you love making mistakes, just be there to support them. Be there. If they want help, they can turn to you and they can ask for help. And make sure then that you can give them the help that they ask for. But you start to get really confusing when you start jumping in, when they haven't even asked you to jump in, and you start answering questions that they haven't asked to be answered. So again, it's getting the sequence right. It first starts with you. Imagine the energy first flowing through you, and then it flows out.
Yeah.
So first of all, look after yourself. Make sure that you're healthy, well, that you're balanced, and then offer that energy out to other people.
Yeah.
There's a great saying in all of this self-development work about being of service, being a server. And the Taoists say something similar. They say, if you're being of service, make sure you have something to serve. Don't go to somebody with an empty tray. Make sure you know what they want and you can give them what they want. And to do that, you have to have a relationship with yourself. You have to be at one with yourself. You have to be at peace with yourself. You have to know that if somebody else is there wanting something, that you can deliver and you can give them what they want.
I mean, and I think as well, Dan makes the point about ever since his childhood, he's tried to make things right for other people. And you know, this comes up time and again with our clients, because I know, like, and for myself, I can relate to this. You know, not wanting the people around you to be upset or to argue, you know, trying to make smooth things over, you know, even as a small child, being highly sensitive to kind of the moods of people around you, and wanting to get rid, you know, having that sensitivity, creating red light feelings that you experience as a child. And I guess it's a strategy, isn't it? It's a strategy for a child, which is not appropriate, but that's how it kind of begins in a way.
It's an important thing that you said, because again, to give the teaching, it sounds quite harsh, but really what you're trying to do is to smooth things over, not for other people. It's because you don't like the feeling. So it's very manipulative, isn't Most people hear that word and think, oh, crikey, that's a really harsh word, David. But actually, it's quite a good word. What you're trying to do is to smooth things over so that you don't experience those feelings.
Discomfort.
Exactly. Instead of teaching the child that you're creating that discomfort, you know, sometimes a good row can clear the air.
Yeah.
You know, somebody going through a spiritual lesson very rarely goes through it easily. You have to learn, and you have to sometimes experience that discomfort.
And I think for a lot of children, and this is something that gets carried through into adulthood, there's a misunderstanding. The child often thinks they're the cause of the problem.
Absolutely.
So therefore they have to do something to fix it. You know, using Dan's word, he's a recovering fixer. And that's the misunderstanding. You know, for example, if your parents are arguing and rowing, or for a lot of people, a lot of children think, you know, the reason their parents got divorced was somehow because of them, you know, and they feel forever a sense of kind of guilt about it. And it's a complete misunderstanding. But of course, no one has ever told a child and taken them to one side and say, you know, this pain, you know, because when parents argue and they get upset, that is real pain. It's not imagined, but this pain is not being caused by you. It is not your role to make things better, and that if it's not dealt with correctly, it becomes a habitual thing. The child gets the red light feelings. They think, oh, what on earth's happening here? They start to blame themselves. Then they have to try and deal with the red light feelings and get rid of them. And it's a manipulative, it's a warped, it's a misunderstood strategy, is that they somehow have to solve the problem for other people.
And I think you used an important word there, Alex, because it's the sensitivity of the child. And nearly all children are sensitive, of course, but some are more sensitive than others. And that's why teaching a child about their emotional feelings are so important. I think it's one of the greatest lessons we don't do. We teach them maths, we teach them how to read and write, but we don't teach them how to deal with, how to manage their emotional feelings, what creates their emotional feelings. And for a sensitive child, experiencing an emotional event can be like a tsunami. And I can tell you from my experience, it can follow them all through their lives. And it is about understanding the basic, that you are the creator of all your emotional feelings. Every emotional feeling that you experience, you have created them by what you think and what you believe. And I wish we could teach this to our children. And you can change your emotional feelings. And don't think a red light feeling, we call them red lights, just to emphasize their intense feelings are always bad. And if you deal with a feeling correctly, it will not last forever. Feelings will come and go, and you have to interpret the feelings. And we have to teach the children to look back at what has created them. And really, this is it. The main thing that I can see on both of these is teaching them, so many words for this. I would call it Qiang, self-nurturing. Perhaps you would call it self-love, loving yourself. And that's one of the greatest gifts we can teach our children, on how to love themselves, how it's their responsibility to care for themselves. It is not selfish, Dan or Angie, to love yourself first, because otherwise you're looking for someone else to fill what you believe is a hole. I sometimes, when I'm working with my clients, they almost talk. In fact, one client said a few months ago, it seems to me like I'm a jigsaw puzzle and I'm looking for another piece of the puzzle to make me whole. That's wrong. You're already whole. And this is what we should be teaching our children. You are already divine. You are already whole. You don't need someone else to make you whole. And that's the basis of this thing, because a lot of people will try and help other people because they want them to feel good about them, and it can get very complicated.
And
Alex.
certainly for Angie, I guess one of her drivers in terms of the partners she seeks out is this kind of saving people, rescuing people, and you know, it's perhaps based on a belief that she's not good enough, and you know, she has to prove herself.
Oh, that's all she deserves.
And that, you know, all that, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think so. I guess if we say like step one is, obviously, you have the red light feelings.
Step one is to take a breath, drop your shoulders. Drop your shoulders now, relax. And understand you are divine.
Yeah.
You are awesome. I've got an American friend, when I go and do talks with him, he comes out on stage, you know, you've seen him, haven't you? He goes, you're awesome, you're awesome. And all the American words go, woo, 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 woo. And really, but that's the truth. You are awesome. Do not doubt yourself. And that's what we should be teaching all of our children, but especially the sensitive children. So that's step one. Drop your shoulders now. Relax. If you disagree with me, if you don't think I'm awesome, put it on the bottom. Prove to me you're not awesome. You won't be able to do it. So that's the first step.
And know that, you know, it is not your job to save other people, not your job to fix them. Get centered. Don't take on other people's pain. If you have red light feelings, you have to know that, you know, you've created those feelings. It's not come from somebody else. And once you've got yourself centered in your Wu Wei flow, then you can decide whether it's appropriate and how much it's appropriate and to what extent it is appropriate to.
But you see the difference there, because you're in control.
Because you're in control.
That's right.
But then it's a two-way thing, because as David said at the very beginning, unless someone asks you for help, it's not your job to offer it. It's not the authentic way. And then if it's appropriate and support is asked for in some way, shape or form, you can offer that.
And do the best you can for them.
But then to step back as well.
And just do the best you can for them, support them, because in my experience, you support them, and not all of the time that they'll take or want your support. You know, they'll take it from someone else. But if you're coming from your right place, where you've received the love and you're giving out the love, and it's flowing through you and
without
out,
expectations
of getting it back, then that's the purest way of supporting someone. And that is the way that they will more likely accept your support, because they don't see it with any ties, with any underground stuff, with wanting anything back. You're just giving it because you are full of love. Because remember, there's no shortage of love or chi, which I think is the same thing as in the universe. The more you give out, the more you attract. We've got to do the law of attraction one. We've got to do that 1 week. The more you give out, the more you attract, the more it flows through you, the more that they're more likely to accept.
But giving it out with from the correct starting
place.
point,
Absolutely.
which is not a manipulation to try and solve your red light feelings.
That's right.
Giving it out because you're calm, centered and balanced. You've done that work first, and then it's about creating that appropriate boundaries, appropriate dialogue with whoever it is. So for Dan, whether it's a family member, for Angie, whether it's a partner, and you know, as I say, we have a lot of clients who have childhood issues with this kind of fixing thing, like Dan said, you know, trying to make things right, trying to make things better, trying to smooth things over, not wanting ruffle feathers within a family situation. Okay.
Dan, Angie, you are divine. Love yourself, and then you can love others.
So thank you everyone for watching, and please, as ever, if you've got any comments or questions on this topic, just post them below, or you know, you can always email us at info@wuweiwisdom.com, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.
Thank you.